Hello and welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger. Having a little bit of an issue with the camera, so sorry about the choppiness in the beginning there. I don't know, sometimes these apps they're just not very user friendly, especially when you're totally blind and try to use them. So Wisdom Wednesday, here we are. 你好，欢迎回来 and all that stuff, or as kitten like to say, wala wala. She asked me before, what do you say always why do you always say walla walla? I said I don't say walla walla. And she said, yeah, you do. In the beginning of your Wisdom Wednesday or your Mandarin 101 on your podcast, you say walla walla. I said I do not say walla walla. I said 欢迎回来. I think Kitten need to get her ears checked. That's what's going on. So the date is August 31st, 2022. I am feeling a little bit exhausted because I just spent the last like 4 hours getting things ready for a research project that we are taking part in tomorrow. It's a lot of materials to look through and audio editing and uh, grabbing the right sound bites and all that stuff. So my original thought was it would only take me an hour. I would sit down at my computer and quickly get things together, and that would be that. And it turned out to be a lot more complicated. Looking for the right sound files, looking for the right timestamp on the sound, and which how long into the clip is the sound I need, and then cut that out of the clip and then saving it all in the right format and making sure that it's all playable tomorrow. Yeah, so long story short, I am a little bit exhausted and I still need to go to work after this. So let's get on with it. Um, Today I want to tell you guys about something that most of you uh, probably never even heard of. I myself have only learned of this recently and I thought this was immensely interesting. Nowadays, there's a lot of self-help books in the world. Almost like anyone who's anybody, and even people who aren't anybody, try to write something that supposedly help others how to reach success. And sometimes, if you look at some of these authors, I mean, some of these authors they are pretty successful, like Anthony Robbins and Bill Gates or so and so. Like these people, okay, like if Bill Gates want to write something about uh, 5 easy steps to become a millionaire, I might actually read that. But some of these authors you never even heard of. And I would dare to wager that if you look into their background, they're just like you and I. They're not really all that successful. But here they are. They're writing books on how to become uh, financially independent, how to become emotionally strong, how to uh, make a lot of friends. Wait a second, that sounds like Soul Search Sunday. Oh, damn it, I'm doing that too. So, anyway, hey, I'm Johnny Tiger. I'm doing okay. I can teach people how to make friends. Anyway, so there's a lot of self-help material out there. Honestly, my opinion is most of them make fun reading, and if you can get something out of them, that's even better. But honestly, most of them are kind of BS because anyone who's intelligent knows just because you copy everything someone else does, it doesn't guarantee that you'll get the same result. For example, if an author or if a person say, okay, the reason that I became rich was I worked really hard. I get up at 5 every morning, I go to bed at 12 every night, and I don't ever buy anything that I don't need. I don't ever spend any money that I don't need to spend. And I work hard for 20 years, and this is how I become rich. If you copy that, it doesn't guarantee that you'll become rich. Okay? Maybe you do the same thing, you work hard every day, you don't buy anything you don't need, you don't spend any money for fun. You just work, 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 and then 10 years later you get cancer and you die. Right? It doesn't guarantee that you're going to enjoy the same kind of success, even if you copy everything to the T. But these books are out there, and they are there supposedly to teach people how to be successful. Can you imagine if there's a book like that, but this book will tell you how to be the most evil person in the world, and not even for fun. Okay, like there are a lot of books. Like, I mean, there are books out there that say the 10 simple steps to become a supervillain. But anyone knows that these books are not serious. These are supposed to be funny. But today I'm going to tell you about a book that was so serious, so horrifying, that it was listed uh, as the most evil book in Chinese history. Yeah, for real. I mean, Chinese people have been kicking around for a long time, 5,000 years or more. Some people say maybe 10,000 years. But okay, as far as written records go, we can trace it back at least 5,000 years. 5,000 years, there's been a lot of things written. There's a lot of books. Chinese people love books. Chinese people love big, long books. So there's been a lot of books. But this one book was able to stand head and shoulder above any other book and became known as the most evil book in Chinese history. What is this horrifying book? Well, this book, the Mandarin name is Luo Zhi Jin, Lojejing, Luo Zhi Jin. Jin means book, means record of something, a novel, a scientific journal, a record keeping collection. So basically, book. Mostly Jin means uh, very serious book. Like Bible is also Jin, and the Buddhist uh, teaching. Those are all titled with Jin. So Jing, Jin is a very serious kind of book, factual or authoritative, uh, educational, inspirational, uh, collection of wisdom. That kind of book is all titled as Jin. Luozhi, the first two words in the book, Luozhi Jin, Luozhi, what does that mean? Luozhi is an old Chinese phrase, basically mean to entrap somebody, to frame somebody with a crime, to trick somebody into confessing, and to execute somebody for a crime. It encompasses a lot of meaning, basically centering on how to entrap someone and get them killed. So Luo Zhi in a quick translation basically means the book of how to entrap someone, the book of entrapment. In this book is every known uh, uh, tricks and dirty tricks and uh, schemes and uh, psychology stuff that was known to Chinese people, that was known to the author, how to entrap someone, how to trick someone, how to rob someone, how to rape someone, how to kill someone. All the nasty things you can do to another human being is recorded in this book. Really nasty stuff. This some people may say, okay, how serious is this? This sounds like someone just wrote it for fun. Well, let me tell you how serious this was. This book was written during the Tang Dynasty. We'll go into the origin in a little bit, but this book was written during the Tang Dynasty, so roughly 1,500 years ago. And ever since its inception, ever since it came into existence, uh, other than the Empress Wu Ziteng, the only female emperor ever in Chinese history. Now we may do an episode on Wu Ziteng sometime because her story is very very interesting, very dark, very interesting. Just a crazy, uh, dark, brutal, scheming, treacherous woman, but nonetheless was uh, the pinnacle of women independent, women power in Chinese history because for 5,000, 6,000 of Chinese history, she was the only woman ever to become an emperor. So that alone tell you how impressive that was. So the book of entrapment was written during the rule of Empress Wu Ziteng, and she, after reading that book, she exclaimed, and I quote, she said, "This book has more wisdom in it than I have in my head." So she actually loved it. But this book was so horrifying that every single emperor after Empress Wu Ziteng, in another word, for the every single emperor for the last 1,500 years banned the book. This was the banned material. If you owned a copy of this book, you would be put to death. Your whole family would be put to death. Anyone who read this book would be put to death. This was such a horrifying, seriously criminal book that all the emperors, no matter good one, bad one, strong one, weak one, would ban it, ban anyone from reading it. Today, one copy of the original Luo Zhijin, the Book of Entrapment, exists in Japan. If you uh, look into Tang Dynasty uh, culture and history that been brought over to Japan, because a lot of Japanese culture actually derive from the Tang Dynasty. Their sword, their kimono, their buildings, their interior design. A lot of the stuff you see today that you think are Japanese actually came from China during the Tang Dynasty. While Japanese people were copying and learning from Chinese culture, they also got their hand on a copy of the original Luo Zijin, and that book, that copy of the original, is still being kept safe in Japan today. So who was the person that wrote such an evil book? Well, it took an evil person. This person's name was Liao. Liao. Uh, Low. Liao. His full name was Liao Junqian, but we'll just call him Liao for the ease of storytelling. Who is this Liao? Liao was kind of a exceptional person to begin with. Why was he exceptional? Because his goal was very different uh, from when he was a child, comparing to anyone else. Back in ancient China, most people's goals were very simple. Women's goal were to find a nice husband and to have children. Men's goal was to uh, write the imperial exam and become one of the imperial magistrates or imperial government worker, or to go fight on the battlefield to uh, protect the country and become a hero. Okay, most people's goals were like that. Back then, there's not a lot of choices. Liao was very different from other people. His goal from early childhood was to grow up to be a hoodlum. He wanted to grow up to be the most successful evil bastard in the world. He wanted to grow up to be that street punk that would sexually molest women, children, and beat up men and take anyone people would own. That this was a child that set a goal to grow up to be a evil bastard. Why was that? Because Liao's own dad was that guy. Liao's own dad, his dad was a street hoodlum. His dad was always getting into fights and was drunk and cheating people out of money and robbing people, raping women, molesting people, and any kind of evil deed he would do. And when Liao was a teenager, his dad's evil deed finally caught up with him, and the local magistrate threw his dad in jail and then chopped off his head. And that was the end of Liao's dad. But by this time, Liao already had his mind set on following in his dad's footsteps. But he wanted to be better. He knew how to be better because Liao realized that one thing that his dad did wrong was he didn't play the game well. He didn't know how to bribe the authority. He didn't know how to work the system. He didn't know how to exploit the loophole. He was just bad, bad, bad. He was just robbing, raping, pillaging, fighting, and cheating people. He didn't know how to uh, worm his way out of situation. Liao realized that if he wanted to be like his dad, if he wanted to be even more evil than his dad, that he had to learn how to work the system, how to go through the loophole, how to bribe the right people, how to talk to the right people, how to build the right connection. So he grew up, and indeed, he became that guy. He became just like his dad, this local thug that would just uh, was a major pest to local people. Everyone hated him. Some people feared him. Some people wanted him dead. So eventually, he pissed off enough people that they got together and went to complain to the local magistrate, and the local magistrate threw Liao in jail. And because Liao was such a piece of work, after he got put in jail, he was being beat up by other prisoners and the jail guard every day. To save himself, Liao said to the warden of the jail, "You know why I'm in here?" And the warden said, "I know, because you are a pest. You're an evil bastard. Everyone say you're a bad guy. No one likes you. That's why you're in here." Liao said, "No, you got it wrong. That's just the story. That's just the story they put on paper. I'm actually I'm a secret spy for Her Highness, the Empress Wu Zitang. I am that person that she sent to listen to what people are talking about. Okay, I am the person who's going to report to her that who's bad and who's rebellious and who's plotting a rebellion and who's wanting to murder her. So you guys better keep me safe. You guys better be nice to me. Because if I get to talk to the empress and I am going to tell her how I'm treated in here, well, you guys got to remember that back then, 1,500 years ago, it's not like the jail guard and prison guard really had like fax machine or email. It's not like they could double check something like this. Uh, it's not like the jail warden could actually ride to the imperial city, go into the palace, and ask the emperor, "Hey, did you send a spy to this town, disguised as a local hoodlum, and he's actually doing your Majesty's work?" No, they couldn't double check that. So everyone wanted to be on the safe side. You know what? Like, what if he's telling the truth? What if you let something happen to him and he actually is working for the emperors? You never know. So the jail guard started to protect him and treat him extra nice while he's in jail. He was treated like a VIP because of that. However, This story obviously was very flimsy, and one day a new magistrate took over, governing the local town, that the town that he was jailed in, and this magistrate actually was very close to the emperors. And this magistrate knew that Lai's story was total BS, total bullshit. So this magistrate told the jail guard, beat him up, okay, double the beating every day because he's been playing you guys for fools. So the last year or so, before Lai was finally released, he went through days of torture at the hand of the jail guard because every one of them pissed off at him for making them look like idiots. Well, Lai obviously was very angry at this new magistrate. So after he came out of jail, he actually started writing letters to the imperial city, addressed to Empress Wu Zitang. Of course, these letters were like, "My name is Lai. I live in this town. I'm your loyal subject. I'm willing to be your spy. And just because I'm so loyal, I'm going to tell you that the magistrate you sent to our town, he's actually plotting the rebellion against you." Now, normally, this again would be another flimsy story, and if he was found out, he would be if he was found out that he was lying to the emperors, he would be sentenced to death, no question asked. But this was where Lai's entire life changed. This was where his life actually took a 180, and he suddenly went from being that local hoodlum that no one liked to being the empress's personal imperial inquisitor. You see, when he wrote that letter and said the local magistrate is a rebel and he's plotting to dethrone you and he's not loyal to you, he made all that up. But just happened that local magistrate was a rebel. Just happened that local magistrate was building an army to try to overthrow Empress Wu Zitang. And the year after Lai wrote the letter, now when he wrote that letter, the empress didn't even read it. Like the empress didn't have time to read every letter from every citizen that wanted to write letter in, of course. So the empress just kind of set it aside. She probably browsed it, uh, like, oh, this guy Lai said, or this magistrate says it is a rebel. Okay, whatever. She just didn't pay any mind. But the year after she received the letter, there was a local rebellion, and this magistrate was leading the army trying to overthrow the empress. Needless to say, the magistrate failed, and everyone who took part in the rebellion got put to death. And this was when the empress remembered, hey, this kind of sounds familiar. Didn't I receive a letter that said this guy was going to rebel? Yeah, where did I put that letter? She found the letter and whoa, this guy lied. He's really something. He's he's my loyal subject. He tried to warn me a year before. She didn't even know that he made the whole thing up, and he just got lucky there. So the empress had summoned Lai to the imperial palace, and after talking to him a couple of times, interviewing him a couple of times, she realized that Lai was very talented. Not talented in a good way. He was talented in he's full of bad ideas. He's full of ways how to torture people. He's full of ways of how to entrap people, how to frame people, how to uh, make people confess to crimes they didn't even commit. He was really sneaky and treacherous and just pure evil at heart. The emperors loved that. The emperors was thinking, I have a lot of enemy. I need someone like Lai here to help me get rid of these enemies. A lot of these enemies I can't really go after them because they don't appear to be doing anything wrong. Uh, so I don't have a good excuse to go after them. But Lai seemed to be able to uh, force them to confess to things that would entrap them and get them uh, thrown in jail. That's great. I got a gem in my hand. So the Emperor Zhu Zitang had Lai appointed to be uh, her personal inquisitor. It was his job to weed out rebels. It was his job to weed out traitors. It was his job to report to her who was going to betray her, who was not loyal to her, who talked crap about her, who was thinking bad thoughts about her, who was doing things behind her back. It was his job to do that. This placed an immense amount of power in Lai's hand. You got to realize that back then, this was crazy. This was one guy. If he didn't like you, he just have to go to the emperors and say, "Hey, I know this guy Johnny Tiger, and he make really good podcast, and I know you really enjoyed his podcast. But you know, when he's not making podcasts, he's actually sitting at home and uh, uh, making voodoo dolls of the emperors and wishing death upon you." And the emperors would take his word for it and put whoever he pointed out to torture and to death. So it was during this time when Lai became super powerful, super important, and he was so proud of his own work that he wrote the Luo Zijin book, the book of entrapment, which contained all the dirty tricks that this guy knew, all the ways of torture, rape, pillage, entrapment, execution, abuse, everything that he knew. Just to give you an example of one of the tricks, and please don't do that at home. Well, just to give you an example of one of the things that was mentioned in the Luo Zijin book. Uh, Lai said, if a person is not repentant, if a person won't confess to his or her sin, put them in a big iron pot, fill it with water, and slowly boil the water while they are in there. And if they are truly innocent, they will not confess. Otherwise, if they confess, then they are evil, they are guilty, they can be put to the death. This was the kind of thing that he would do to people. He would boil them alive to get a confession out of them. Well, I've talked extensively about karma before, and karma did eventually catch up with Lai because Lai was so trigger happy. He was going after anyone who pissed him off, anyone who he didn't like, anyone who dared to even look at him crossway, that he eventually went after the wrong guy. He eventually went after one of the most famous judge in the Tang Dynasty. This judge's name was Judge Di Renjie. We'll just call him Judge D because the name is a little bit of a mouthful. Judge D, those of you that know Chinese history would immediately uh, know this guy, Di Renjie. Judge Di Renjie was one of the most honorable, noble, smart, intelligent judges and solved a lot of crime, unsolvable crimes, murders, and stuff like that. Um, so Liao actually went after Judge Di, and he uh, had Judge Di arrested, and he asked Judge Di, "Are you guilty of the crime of treason?" To everyone's surprise, Judge Di said, "Yes, yes, I'm guilty, I'm guilty." And so, since Judge Di confessed, uh, Liao had him thrown in jail, awaiting to be executed. Now, back then, if you were sentenced to death, all the execution have order have to be signed by the emperors. So the moment the emperor saw the name on the execution order, Judge D. She was shocked. Like, what the heck? What's going on here? Like, why is one of my best judges being sentenced to death for treason? So the empress went to the jail herself to visit Judge D and ask him, "Are you really guilty of treason?" Judge D said, "Your Majesty, I am not guilty of treason. I am your most loyal, noble, honorable subject." And the emperor said, "But here on the execution order, there's your confession right here." Judge D said, "You have no idea what your inquisitor lie is like. If I didn't confess, he would torture me to the point where I would be dead in hours. So the only way for me to see your Majesty for the one last time, hopefully to talk to you and get it through your head that I'm innocent, was for me to confess, for the execution order to get to you, so you would come see me." This was one instance that just illustrates how smart Judge D was. He knew that if he kept arguing and trying to maintain his innocence, Lai would torture him to death. So his only chance was to confess, and hopefully the emperors would come see him. And it worked. The empress was so angry that Lai would try to get one of her favorite judges killed, as she had signed the order to get Lai executed. So that ended the brutal, evil life of one of the most nefarious executioner, inquisitor of the Tang Dynasty, the person who wrote the most evil book in the entire Chinese history. If you are interested in the validity of this story and the existence of Luo Zhijin, you can do a quick Google search on Luo Zhijin, the book and its origin, and I believe you can still find it on some Japanese museum website that they will actually show you that the copy of the original book does still exist. Um, I also recommend, for extra fun reading, read into the legend of Judge Di Renjie. There was some really great, like he's like, it's almost like a Chinese Sherlock Holmes. He was one of the Chinese best judges and detective and most honorable magistrate that lived throughout Chinese history. Thank you for checking out today's Wisdom Wednesday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Toy Thursday. And I know, I owe you guys two Music Mondays. Hopefully, we'll get to that sometime. For now, I got to go get ready for work. So, have a good day and bye.
再见。
再见。